Are you a business owner stuck in fear, doubt, and worry about what the marketplace will look like in the future? Then this show is for you. Strap on your seatbelt and get ready to disrupt and innovate. Here's your host, Lisa Levy.
Welcome to another enlightening episode of the Disrupt and Innovate podcast. Today, I have the honor of hosting Dr. Bruno Cignacco, a distinguished international business consultant, speaker, and coach. With over 2 decades of experience in advising and training hundreds of companies on international trade activities and marketing, Bruno brings a wealth of expertise to the table. As a university lecturer and senior fellow at the Higher Education Academy in the United Kingdom, he's dedicated himself to empowering individuals and organizations to excel in the global marketplace. Bruno's not only a renowned consultant, but he's also a prolific author with several business and personal development books published in multiple languages. His latest masterpiece, The Art of Compassionate Business, promises to revolutionize the way we approach business and leadership. Join me as we explore the world of compassionate business and glean insights from Bruno's vast knowledge and experience. Welcome to the conversation, Bruno.
Thank you, Lisa, for the invite. I feel very honored. Thank you very much.
I'm so thrilled to have you here. This topic of conversation, when I talk so much about being disruptive, right, choosing to challenge the status quo and make a positive impact, leads people to think about big changes and loud things. But really, people are important, and compassion is a cornerstone to what we do and what we should be doing and probably need to do more of. Will you share with the audience a little bit about your background and your journey and why what you're doing is so important?
Thank you very much for the question. Yes, I started like 30 years ago as an accountant, an advisor on different topics, tax, auditing, but then I started turning into other activities, for example, international marketing, international trade. I started advising medium-sized companies, big companies. But lately, over the last few years, my journey as a consultant have a very interesting view because I started researching on the topic of human-oriented business. And what I observed that there is a new generation of companies that are not only focused on profit, it means that they are very successfully economically speaking, but also they are focusing on what we call the human orientation. They are focusing on stakeholders and they're trying to, for example, support employees, to be more caring with the environment, but also these companies are also much more supportive of different stakeholders, such as community members, business partners, and these companies prioritize what we call the business relationship because they know that by fostering this relationship, fostering long-lasting, robust relationships with stakeholders, they are more prone to bring about much more economic results. As a result of this was coronated by my new book, The Art of Compassionate Business, and with my consultancy organization, we started advising companies on, for example, mindfulness in the workplace, how to build a much more compassionate workplace, how to serve customers in a much more compassionate way, how to, for example, bring about a much more meaningful mission for the business. And I feel that there is a new generation of companies that are willing to accept that it's not only about focusing on the bottom line, this profit, but also is much broader paradigm on business, which include profit, but also include people, caring for different stakeholders and caring for the planet.
And it is something, the timing when you wrote the book and then what followed. So the book was published in 2019. And then the pandemic happened. And I think that we are in a very different reality than we would have been previously, one that is more willing to hear what you're talking about. Business leaders had to find empathy and they had to find compassion to guide us through a pandemic globally.
True.
With the work that you're doing, are you seeing significant transformation from where you were when you were writing it to the impact that it's making now because the audience reading it is different?
Yes, I feel that there is a very important change. For this reason, last year I published the second edition of this book, 2023, and I introduced the changes that I observed during the pandemic. What I observed that during the pandemic, there were two types of companies, two categories of companies. Companies that didn't care at all, they tried to survive by all means. For example, in some cases, they were firing employees mercilessly without any compensation. They were not caring for customers. They were not honoring their promises. And on the other side, there were some companies that were much more human oriented. Even though these companies were not doing very well from the economic perspective, these companies were caring for employees. For example, if they had to fire employees, these companies were looking for a new organization where these employees can be hired. And also, if this company couldn't honor the customer promises made to customers, but this company tried to look for flexible ways to honor these promises. This means that this company didn't want to break up the relationship, the important relationship with different stakeholders. So this means that during the pandemic, you saw a very important divide. This means companies that were only interested in economic results. The consequence of this, they couldn't sustain and brighten this relationship. And on the other side, there were companies that were trying to survive, trying to do their best from the economic perspective, but also prioritizing the relationship. So, and this also it motivated me to introduce more cases of companies that were much more human-oriented during the pandemic, cases of companies that were also caring for employees because they know that they're the most important resource in any organization alongside customers, and companies that were also, even despite difficulties, trying to make a meaningful contribution to the environment, to the consumers. So I saw this divide during the pandemic. I still see now, and maybe in 30 years' time, we don't have to talk about compassionate companies because all companies will be compassionate, but I still see a very important group of companies that are still traditional from the business perspective, only focusing on what we call the bottom line, economic results. And in some cases during the pandemic, this was very noticeable, focusing on the economic result by all means. This means making a sacrifice on the relationship with the stakeholder, not caring for this relationship.
So we went through the experience with the pandemic, right? And you talked about the two different types, the bottom line profit oriented, and then the more human centric, and people who are getting the impact of this new paradigm. We're arguably, depending on your perspective, in the post-pandemic era. And I think I'm seeing a resurgent of that old paradigm trying to reassert itself. And
Yes.
it seems to be in the largest global companies, right? They are the L'Oreals of the world, the Citibanks, the Fortune 500. And so they get a lot of media coverage and there's a lot of press, and we see a lot about these CEOs who want to manage back to people in the office, butts in seats so that they can see, command and control what's going on. In that other paradigm, that human-centric, people-oriented, is it more representative of smaller businesses and that there might actually be more of them growing and to offset what's happening?
No,
Do you see it everywhere?
no, I see different sizes of company in both categories. But you're right. I can see companies trying to push employees to go back to the offices because they want to micromanage employees. They show a lack of trust of this company toward employees, and they show that they're treating these employees like they were children, that they cannot be trusted, that you cannot delegate any task. And employees, when they feel that they cannot be trusted, they tend to act in a similar way. They don't trust the company. They don't try to give their best. They try to withdraw. They try to work by the book, try not to cooperate. Instead, when you trust employees, I introduced the topic as much more extensively in the second edition of the book. When you trust employees, this generates the positive cycle. This means trust begets trust. Instead, when you are distrusting people, this also begets distrust. When you trust people, they're trying to share resources, they're trying to be more innovative. That's also bring about what we call psychological safety. This means that when people feel at ease, they feel comfortable, they feel taken care of, they feel valued, these employees tend to enhance their skills, they tend to give their best, they tend to work the extra mile. Instead, when people are distrusted, they are micromanaged, these employees get resentful, experience negative emotion. In some cases, they look for other job opportunities according to research, even when they are paid well in the company, because employees' emotional needs are not satisfied. This means that employees, the need for appreciation and recognition is not met, and these companies are shooting on their foot. Why? Because by distrusting employees, I heard some companies, I don't want to mention any companies, some companies that publicize the video conference services that are encouraging employees to go to work from the office, and the main service is video conference services. So this means that this doesn't show a lot of trust, and employees feel that they're not taken care of. Employees feel that they are obviously they're treated in a very cautious way, and they're not trusting one of the most important resources. I call employees the meta resource. This is a resource that generates other resources such as business plans, new products, innovative services, new systems, and so on. When you don't trust employees that are interfacing with the company and customer, these employees are unlikely to serve customers.
And so what you're starting to describe is that creating a compassionate work environment starts with building mutual trust. Are there other key elements?
Yes. A very important key that I mentioned in my book, first edition and the second edition, is that in business you have two types of variables, and companies generally focus only on one of these variables. The first type of variable is quantitative variable, what can be measured, what can be such as profit, market share, productivity, and so on. These are the famous SMART objectives that can be defined in a precise, quantitative way, and they have a deadline. These companies call these objectives key performance indicators. This means that they're indicators that show the performance of the company in the marketplace. However, there is a second type of variable that many companies dismiss that we call qualitative aspect of business, which include empathy, care, support, generosity, gratitude, and these qualitative aspect of business foster long-lasting, strong relationship with different stakeholders. Counterintuitively, when you foster this qualitative aspect of business, this means when the relationship with different stakeholders, such as customers, suppliers, employees, community members, are stronger over time, these stakeholders tend to be on your side. They tend to cooperate with your company. And because no company can succeed on their own without stakeholders, as a consequence of fostering a strong relationship, these stakeholders contribute to the quantitative aspect of business. This means that by being good with customers, by supporting employees, by supporting the community members, you have all these stakeholders not against you, but on your side, and these stakeholders contribute to the company's success because all companies are interdependent. This means that they cannot succeed with these stakeholders. So wouldn't it be nice to have all these stakeholders on our side? But many companies focus only on what can be measured. What happens to the qualitative aspect of business cannot be measured precisely, cannot be measured with figures, and some companies dismiss because they consider that they're not important. I consider that companies should have a balance between quantitative aspect of business, profit, market share, and qualitative aspect of business, empathy, camaraderie, compassion, commitment, loyalty.
And so, and I love that you're pulling on the thread, right? The things that are measured are the things that are done, and KPIs, key performance indicators that are quantitative, right, are always the easiest to measure because you can put numbers to them, and they're often also lagging measures, which is a limiting factor of that type of measurement. But when we bring in the qualitative and we start to look at how are we interacting with our stakeholders, right? And in the broadest definition, stakeholders being our customers, our vendors, our suppliers, our employees, our stakeholders, right? This is the whole human-centric aspect of this adds a dimension to the ability for a business to grow and thrive, because if we are serving our customers, their actual needs, not just what we think that they may want from us, but what they actually need, and doing it with empathy and compassion, we will do nothing but grow and scale because we have happy customers.
Exactly. And I want to mention a piece of research. For example, there is a very interesting study on companies that have what they call a loving environment, loving workplace. And according to this study, the research of different companies, companies that have a very compassionate, supportive workplace, a place where there is psychological safety. What we have there is that the employees are more satisfied. This is not something that we have to be surprised, but also employees being satisfied bring about customers being satisfied. Why? Because employees that are happy tend to serve customers more effectively. In this company with a loving workplace, also there is a lower turnover, lower absenteeism, lower level, and also this brings about positive impact on profitability. Why? Because the employees want to go to work because, not because they are obligated, but because they feel that they're making a meaningful contribution. So this means that in this company also tend to be much more innovative. Employees tend to share resources, they tend to work as a group, as a team, and they tend to contribute in a meaningful way, not only to the company, but to different stakeholders. So this means that bringing about a positive workplace, bringing about a compassionate work environment, bring about profit. This means that has a very concrete impact on profit. The same for customers that are not only satisfied according to research, to not only satisfied, because the average company can satisfy. Here we're talking about delighting customers. This means exceeding customer expectations. When customers are delighted, this means that the expectations are exceeded. These customers, according to research, are more prone to come back to the company to recommend this company's product to potential customers, to leave positive reviews, and to become what we call silent ambassador regarding the company's product. Why? Because customers feel so satisfied, more than satisfied, that they feel indebted. They feel indebted to give back to the company. And how they can give back? By being loyal, by being committed, by recommending this company's product. So this means that being generous, I talk about generosity in the book, being generous with the stakeholders, employee, customer, and other stakeholders, bring about more generosity. So this means generosity begets generosity. Instead, when the company is self-centered, means they're focusing only on their needs, their objectives, this company pushes away the stakeholder because the stakeholder will ask, what is in for me? There is nothing for me. They're not taking care of me. I'm not feeling valued. I'm not feeling appreciated. And these stakeholders tend to withdraw, tend not to cooperate.
Absolutely. So in that mindset, right, the more we give, the more we get, right? The spirit of reciprocity is kind of what you're talking about in that mindset that, as we are generous to our customers, as we are generous to our employees and our stakeholders, right, we will in turn get more because we build loyalty, we build that delight, and delight is the goal. Satisfaction comes and goes, but delight sticks.
I agree.
And makes a real impact. Bruno, if people listening or watching the show are interested in learning more, where can they find out more about you and your book and what you're doing?
Well, they can find more about me on my website is www.brunocignacco.com, Cignacco with double C at the end. Or you can find me on LinkedIn, Bruno Cignacco, and they can find my book, The Art of Compassionate Business, in any bookshop, online and offline. This is the second edition that is a white cover published by Rudley.
Absolutely fabulous. Links to all of those places will be in the show notes for easy access. Bruno, the conversation today talking about the power of running businesses with a human orientation, understanding that compassion and empathy actually drive the ability to grow and scale and build customer delight are absolutely brilliant points for the audience to learn. And again, ending up with the idea of generosity and that what we give, we get back. And so that the more that we can give to our people and all humans involved in our business, right, the more we actually get back. So thank you so much for your time today and sharing that with us. For my audience, you know the rules. Don't get left behind. Join me next time.
That's it for today's episode of Disrupt and Innovate. Head over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Every single week, one lucky listener that posts a review on iTunes will win the grand prize drawing, a $15,000 private VIP day with Lisa Levy. And be sure to head over to disruptandinnovate.com and get your free copy of Lisa's gift and join us on our next episode.